Okay, hi. So this is gonna be just like a unscripted, I don't know, unedited video of just talking about pulsus mapping, what I think makes a good map. I don't know if I'm a good mapper, but first of all, what is pulsus? Some rhythm game played by Stooges, I don't know, but basically it's a rhythm game with a 9x9, not 9x9, with a 3x3 grid, and you can play it with your numpad. I'll just pull up a map. And you press the keys to the beat. It's a rhythm game. And like, you know, you get it. So, the problem with making a map in pulsus is it's a lot different from a lot of other rhythm games. I'm going to compare this to Osu, I guess. So, but pulsus, when you play it, it's pretty unintuitive, I'm going to be real, because reading it can be really hard, as in just knowing what notes to hit. And a lot of maps can get really messy. I don't really have a example of a really messy map, but honestly, you could look at stuff. I don't know, but there's a lot of maps that can just be really hard. Let's take my own map because this map kind of sucks. But basically, with pulsus, a lot of it has to be intuition, and a lot of times, like, changing rhythms can be really hard to play. I've made this map, so I guess I just kind of get it, but like, there's like some just weird jank break right there, and it can be really hard to play if you don't expect it coming. A lot of it, when you're playing pulsus, is a lot more muscle memory rather than just reading it. In something like, I guess I'll just take Osu again, you have like sliders and circles and approach circles, and with those, I think Osu is also another more intuition-based rhythm game, but it's a lot easier to express like what should be played with stuff like filler rhythms, stuff like different sliders, and I guess that's just kind of advanced and you have to know a little bit of Osu mapping. But something like Stepmania, for like a 4-key game mode, you have your hands in one place, the notes come down, super easy to understand, super easy to learn, and you just hit it to the thing. In pulsus, you have 9 things, your hands are moving everywhere. It's so weird, like, what do you hit with what? And I get that's like the mess. I'm gonna make a level using Ronald. It's a perfect math class because I feel like it. But basically, I just want to show what I think can make intuitive gameplay that's not horrible to read. So, I guess, yeah. So, maybe I should go over setting up a map. So, let's just do that first. So, when you're setting up a map, first you need to get a song, and you can upload a song by clicking New Song, and then you can put in the stuff. The direct link is what links to the song. It's kind of weird and different from every other rhythm game, but you have to upload it on a Dropbox, and then you have to change the link. If you join the Discord, which is right here in the follow pulses, you can join the Discord, and there's an FAQ section where you can see what to download or how to upload songs. Yeah. So you pick a song, you can copy the song ID, or so you just see it right there. Go to your levels, and make a new level. Alright, cool. So, yeah. Next thing, you can open the menu, put in a title, and level. Spell it wrong. And you put the song ID in the song ID, and then there's also a song offset. This is basically how long in milliseconds before the song starts. This is basically how you time your map for when to start. every song is different, and sometimes it can be really hard to get a perfect offset. In general, you just want to get it as close as possible, and then when you're play testing, you can look at how early or late you're hitting before. You can look at how early or late you're hitting, and then change it accordingly. Then in here, you can go down to the timeline settings and then put in the BPM. Every song has a certain amount of beats per minute. The faster beats per minute, it's faster, and slower, and less is slower. I think this one is 170. I'm gonna turn up on my end, but I think this one's 170. I don't remember. But if you want to find the BPM, you can just type in like tap BPM in Google, open a website, and then just hit like the space bar while playing the song to the song, and you'll get a generalized thing. And if it starts to off sync later, you can just adjust it. So I don't know how much offset this has. What I like to do when finding offset is put a note on the 0th beat and then adjust it accordingly. If the note is too early, meaning the song is too late, you increase the offset. And if the song is too early and the note is too late, you decrease the offset. It's kind of tedious, but I think it's something like that. A little more. Okay. Let's do that. All right. So in the editor, there's a lot of stuff going on, and there's even more stuff here. But let's start just off with gameplay. So in the bottom left, there's a play button. Don't use that. Just press space to play and unplay. And you can also use, and yeah, up here is the timeline. That's basically just where you are in the song, and you can use the mouse scroll wheel, or you can use the A and D keys, or if I place a note all the way over here, it's kind of broken right now, but if I exit and then re-enter, there's this thing up here, which can, over here is the last note, and over here is the start of the song. So, then right here are the note types. There's a lot of stuff right here. Don't worry about it. Just worry that there's normal beats, which you basically just hit them to the song. Yeah, and then holds have a hold length, and you basically hold them down and then release them at the end of the hold. You can click on this toggle, but I just like pressing Q. You can see all the hotkeys down there, and you can also change the hold length to something like that, and then it can lag the game a lot. But the hold length is in beats, so you can do something like 0.5, and then the amount of ticks on the hold basically shows how long the hold is, just for like reading purposes. I kind of glossed over what reading even is. Reading is basically just looking at the screen and then hitting the notes accordingly. So reading is the main challenge in getting a pulsus map to work, because like you can do something like, I don't know, this, like to the Ronald sounds, and it can be, you know, rhythmically accurate, but like you're not gonna play that. First thing is to go into your map settings and then go to gameplay and then change the foresight. Longer it is, the longer, or the bigger the foresight number is, the longer it's going to be, and then the smaller it is, the shorter the foresight going to be. And the foresight is basically just how long you see the notes. So in general, a lot of easier maps are somewhere around like here, and then harder maps are like 1.1 to like 0.8. Anything below like 0.9 is getting into like pretty iffy territory. 0.8 can be readable, but basically this is when it starts to become really hard to like react to the notes. And then anything above like 1.5, it can be really hard to know when to hit the notes, because a lot of notes are on screen. So you can do like 1.5, it's easier to read because there's less notes on screen. We can do 1.2, it's even better. But even then, these are still kind of messy patterns. First of all, there's a really weird break right here. So while you're playing, you might see this note on the 9 space, and right here you might press it because you've already seen it, which can mess up your accuracy, make you miss later notes. It can be really messy. And then also there's a lot of these like overlaps, like right here, and then like right here, you know. And overlaps have a bit of a problem, at least for me. Okay, I forgot to mention this too, but this entire video is my opinion. So, my opinion on what good mapping is. So these overlaps, a lot of the times overlaps can be really tricky because if you don't see the overlap properly, then you're just missing a note because you didn't notice it, and sometimes it can just feel really BS. Also, it's really hard to know what rhythms to hit, like there, or like something like this. It can just be really janky. So, another thing you have to consider when mapping, I don't know why I deleted those, is how it's supposed to be played, and that's probably the most important part, even aside from reading. You have to know with what hand and with what and with what fingers these notes are supposed to be hit on. For easier maps, they're usually less dense and have really easy rhythms. Those, I would say, should be built to be played with just one hand, so it really shouldn't be that difficult. But on harder maps, and this video is going to go over like harder maps, but a lot of it also applies for like easier maps. A lot of the times, or yeah, with harder maps you kind of have to play with two hands, multiple fingers, usually the pointer and the middle finger. I also play with my thumb and sometimes the ring finger, though, yeah. But when you're mapping, it's honestly better to just map something you can play, because play testing is really important for knowing what's comfortable. You can make something really hard and think you have some cool patterns, and they can just be a super big mess because like the transitions between the patterns are messy, because the patterns aren't actually that cool, because they're impossible to read, etc. So in general, the left column is for your left hand, the right column is for your right hand, and then the middle column is real estate for either of the hands. In something, so a good, something I like to do is just have it alternate hands. You don't want the patterns to stay on one hand for too long, because at higher speeds it can get really uncomfortable, and also it can just be really annoying. There are cases where you might want to keep everything going on one hand, but that'd be if like the music is complicated. So like something like that, it's like mostly on your right hand. It's kind of like annoying, and let's say this was really fast, like instead of this, like no, that's just really annoying to play. What something you should keep in mind is just alternating hands. So something like this, you do like let's play with the right hand, and then like maybe there's like a note right there, and then it leads into the left hand right there, and it sort of, yeah. So you play with the right hand, and then this middle thing can be either, but then right here, you know you have to play with your left hand because it's on the left hand, or yeah, the left part of the board. So, I lost my track of thought, my train of thought. Alright, I'm just gonna cut the video real quick so I can, yeah. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, I remember what to say now. So, another thing about mapping is musical representation, because the rhythm game, not only is it supposed to be fun to play, but it's also supposed to reflect the music, at least to some extent. In certain games, in certain other rhythm games, it's a lot easier to just like show music in something like 7 key, like Beatmania or something. A lot of the times they have like the drums on the left and then the melody on the right, and it's pretty clear what's happening. Or in something like Taiko no Tatsujin or Osu Taiko, there's you can like map the drums because you're basically playing the drums for the game. In this, there's an ambiguous 9-tile grid, and it can be really tricky. Sometimes I like to map pitches with like top being high pitch, bottom being low pitch, but a lot of the times you have to sacrifice stuff like that. And it can be a lot better to just resort to feel and patterns. For example, here's like this 4-note pattern, kind of like a reverse L, and it's like to those weird Ronald Nico Nico Daga sounds. And then right here it's kind of done again with the same sounds, except I just inverted it so you play it on your left hand. I like to do that stuff like that with similar sounds, because like it's basically played the exact same or played very similarly, or very similar sounds. A lot of the times, maybe it's like just kind of like do something like that. I don't know. I mean, it works for the rhythms, but it's also like you're not really showing, I guess, the music properly, because here's one sound, and then here's basically the same sound, and here you're playing it all on one hand, and then here you're just alternating hands, and it can be kind of, I guess, considered bad. It's not really bad, and basically, I think comfort should be the first priority, comfort to play and comfort to read, but musical representation should definitely still be a really big part of what you're doing. It's a rhythm game. So, next thing, like I said earlier, Pulsus is a game all about intuition when you're playing. I don't think it's about reading. This is almost, I guess, intuitive to play. Everything has like half note beats, or is like half a beat spaced out. There's no like weird rhythms to mess something up, except for this part. It'd be pretty easy to read this note like it's right here, so you could play it like, and just kind of mess everything up. I know you can't see what I'm doing, but you heard the rhythms. So with stuff like this, I like to show rhythms with, or like breaks in rhythm with hold, either something like that or something like, I don't know, something like that. Because the hold basically just tells you there's a little break. So there's a little break, and yeah, that's what it does. And basically this is sort of like filler rhythm. That's when you release the note, and it just creates a consistent half a beat tempo, half a beat like rhythm, so it's not really janky. Now, in doing that, it's kind of become weird to read. A lot of the times putting holds on top of normal beats, or beats on top of holds, can be really iffy, because it can be hard to distinguish between the two, and it can just look like a hodgepodge and stuff. So what you can do is just change up the pattern. I don't know, maybe something like that. And now it goes right hand, still on right hand, left hand. And then this fills the gap between here. I'm just kind of rushing these mapping. I don't even know if I like these patterns, but yeah. And then you can just go do something like that, because these three notes are the same as these three notes. So it makes this little corner shape. This also makes this little corner shape. And then it starts to change a little. So you can do something like I don't know, I'm just making some patterns up. A big, I guess, like, fundamental issue in mapping in pulsus, I forgot to do that, is it's a 3x3 grid. So the columns are 3 spaces long and the rows are 3 spaces long. The reason that's a problem is because most songs are done in 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, etc. rather than 3 beats. So if you wanted to make it be like a 4-beat pattern, you have to do something like this. Creates a kind of ugly overlap, and then, or you could do something like this, where then it's kind of weird because you're like switching to your left hand, and and this beat is kind of emphasized even if you don't really want it to be emphasized. Another really similar game to pulsus is Jubeat. It's a 4x4 grid, and honestly, mapping probably has a lot more easier defined patterns since it's on a 4x4 grid, instead of having to do some like jank stuff like yeah, doing some jank stuff like this for a pattern where there's like this weird bend. You can just create a 4-note column, and it's something you just kind of have to adapt to. Also, with a 3x3 grid, on super hard, fast, complicated stuff, a lot of stuff just starts to overlap and it turns really ugly. So that's something you have to try and manage. It's basically just managing space and making sure it's comfortable. The idea for this pattern is with these notes, they're in like groups of these diagonals. So this is one diagonal and this is another diagonal. You play each of these diagonals like middle finger, pointer finger, middle finger, pointer finger, and then over here you switch to your left hand. That's kind of my idea. It's desyncing, but whatever. Is my BPM wrong? I think I had the wrong tempo. That's why you want to get your tempo before you actually start mapping. And now this is all messed up, so let's go. Alright, I'm gonna cut the video so I can fix this. Hold on. Okay, I changed the BPM so it's a little faster, 175. The problem, if you have the BPM wrong, you have to remap everything because it doesn't like automatically snap to the new BPM, which is a good thing if there's changing BPMs, but if you got it wrong, it's really not a good thing. Luckily, it's pretty short, so. Some really common patterns are stuff like this, like a S Tetris piece or whatever. Basically, you hit these 2 notes with your left hand, hit these 2 notes with your right hand. So, I'm gonna go ahead and just change these to 1 because I want to. A lot of the times when you're mapping, you'll have to go back and just change stuff you don't like, or you can make the beat not exist. Alright, cool. And then I'll put one here because there's a little break. And then right here, those two sounds are a lot louder than the previous sounds and kind of stand out. So something I like to do something like that. Do doubles. Problem with doing like these multi-note patterns is when you're looking at them, they're kind of indistinguishable from normal patterns. It just looks really dense and you're not really going to know what to play at what rhythm. I'm just going to do that because I feel like it. So, sorry. Something I like to do to distinguish like certain patterns, such as these doubles, is use beat colors. So beat color goes from 0 to 255 in like hue, and then you can do like a bunch of other things. You can see the cursor. There's like a little thing next to my cursor. You can't actually see my cursor, but next to it, there's that little circle, and it shows the beat color, and it's pretty useful. So I like to do red for these because it really pop out color. So now this hold tells the player there's a little break right here, and then the red says there is those double notes. And then there are times when that's a thing, but give me a minute. Oops. Alright, and then boom, okay. So there are times when this like doing this kind of hold thing where you hold for the filler rhythms wouldn't really be smart, maybe unintuitive, or even just musically misrepresentative. Even here, it's kind of a stretch because the Ronald sounds cut out, so it might just be better to do something like that. And then these red things distinguish it enough from these that maybe it's a little less tricky to play. Same thing here. There's a little break. Then we can go back to the old pattern. And yeah, give me a minute. Okay, hi, I'm back. I had to do something real quick, but I had a little more to the map. I totally didn't have like a failed take of something I was going to say. But here, I have this part. This is the same pattern as normal with the there. But then right here, the song changed a little bit. The pitches of these four notes are a bit different than the pitches of these four notes. So what I decided to do was first of all, I put this little space here rather than having them be right next to each other, like how I've done with all of these. I instead gave it a little bit of space, and then I changed up the pattern so it's sort of similar, but it's not exactly the same. So they're visually distinguishable, and it like shows there was a little change in the song. Spacing is something kind of complicated in pulsus. It's not really like osu spacing because spacing doesn't necessarily make something easier or harder, but spacing is really good for something like reading. For example, if you're doing like 1/4 stuff, you can do something like this. I don't know. So each of these are 2 notes, and then there's another 2-note pattern, and there's another 2-note pattern. I can just like, or yeah, something like that. That's not really fun to play, so I guess something better would be like that. But you can use spacing to first of all distinguish if you should use the left or right hand. You can also use it for emphasis on the song, but using it for emphasis on the song is a bit trickier because it's not like osu spacing. more spacing between the notes and pulses doesn't necessarily mean harder or may convey emphasis enough, but in this case I think it works. And I don't know, I'll do something like that. And then I'll do that pattern I did earlier, just this time sort of a different direction. And then, I don't know. Da, 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 ba. Something I like to do when I'm mapping is just play it through and just act like I'm actually playing it. Of course, I'm not actually playing it, but I can get the gist of how it feels when it's being played. You should keep in mind when you're mapping is how you play it or how you're used to like reading it can be different. Since you're mapping it, you already know how the map's going to turn out and how everything is played. But you have to think of it in someone who's sight reading the entire map, and that's why you really need these sort of intuitive rhythms, because I could just do that and I could just like do that and it's like, okay, hit it like that. But someone who's playing as a sight read might see this note right here and then just like they just keep going in like a 1/2 beat. Another thing is if you know the song, it's a lot easier to know what to play, since in this case, like, but to someone that doesn't know the song, those rhythmic changes can be really jarring. A lot of the times it's really easy to detach the music from the actual gameplay, and you're just kind of playing the game while listening to the music rather than playing the game to the music. So it can be really tough to sight read stuff. Da 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 da. So here there's a lot of varying patterns. It's a lot more, I guess. Yeah. Da 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 da. But the rhythms are varying a lot. So you need a lot of varying patterns. Like I said, or like I guess I've implied, I don't really know if I've said it, but varying rhythms are harder to map because they can be a lot harder to read because yeah. If you have a lot of varying patterns, you can mess with hit window. Having a larger hit window can make varying patterns or varying rhythms easier to hit because you have more lenience. So even if you're like half a beat ahead, you're still getting like, you're at least hitting it rather than missing it. And if you had like a really tight window, it would be really unforgiving. And in that case, it just kind of feels like BS. So I don't really know what to map here. A lot of the times when I think about patterns, I just play through the song. So, some I'm thinking of doing is just having really long holds, because right here, in this entire section, there's a lot of backgrounds and a lot of sounds, but here, the main sounds are just this. There's like this like chimes and like chords in the background. There's not drums, and there's just a bunch of varying rhythms. So what you can do, or what I'm thinking of doing, just holds. I don't know. Dun, dun, and then right here. Right there, the Ronald sounds start to become more consistent, and also the drums enter a little bit earlier. So you can do this. There's a visual difference between those, so you know something might change. and then da, da, and then some like I messed that up. When there's stuff like this, there's of course a lot of varying rhythms, but sometimes you just have to map it accordingly. And when there's a lot of varying rhythms, it sort of becomes intuition to expect varying rhythms. So when there's stuff like this, it can be a lot easier to read. Also, when there's these longer spaces, it can be easier to read since like right here you wouldn't hit it right there because you've barely even seen this note starting to come up, and then once it starts coming up here, you know to hit it somewhere right there. So now there's something like, I don't know, I don't want to do that. I'm gonna do like bum ba bum bum. When there's faster rhythms, like these 1/4 stuff, you want to make sure they're comfortable. One of the most common ones is something like this, because you just hit 2 of them with one hand, and then the last one with one hand, or you can do the first one with one hand, and then the other 2 with the other hand. So that's kind of tricky, because right here, because you have to move both of your hands up to hit this note, and then you have to move them really fast down. So I can do something like that, and it's easier. There. I'm gonna just keep going with this. With these double patterns, they can be considered, I guess, hard, but they're not really much harder than normal notes if they're used right. The most common patterns are stuff like this, which you hit with both of your hands. There's also like this. This one's a bit of a harder one because for this one you have to either stretch your pointer and middle finger, or you can use your thumb and your middle finger, your thumb and your pointer finger, or hit them both with either your hands. There's a lot of options, and it can be really messy to play. Another one is stuff like this or that, because with those you just use your middle and pointer to just hit them with the same hand. Same with this, though it's a little harder because you have to like angle your hand. This is also fine, I guess, because it's just both your hands, but the more uncomfortable patterns are stuff like this, because it's a bit harder to read since there's like this weird skew, and also this kind of stuff is really tricky, especially right here on the left hand. Okay, hold on. So something like this is pretty easy to play because it naturally angles with your fingers. So your pointer finger hits the middle note, and then your then your middle finger hits the 7 top left note. And same thing with like these ones, except just with your right hand. Though these are still pretty hard to read, I'd say. Either I'm just not used to it, or it's like kind of jank. But something like this or this is really annoying because you have to, because this is implied to play with your left hand or with both of your hands. So you have to like stretch out your pointer finger and then bend your middle finger, or you hit the bottom, or you hit like the left note with your ring finger and then the top note with your middle finger. Same thing with this, it's just on the right hand. And if you hit it with both of your fingers, well, there's a lot of jank now, depending on what would come after this. For example, something like, for example, something like this could be messy, because if you're hitting it with both your hands, then you'd have to hit that top note with like your left hand middle finger, or something like that, and it can be really weird. all here is also just a bunch of free real estate, which you'll probably have to hit with your thumbs or something if you hit it with both hands. When you're doing multi-note patterns like this, you have to really think about what's comfortable or not, and it just gets more difficult when you're doing 3-note, 4-note, whatever. It all comes down to reading, and then what comes after it, and also what leads up to playing it. So your fingers are in the right position, and then your fingers are in the right position afterwards, and your hands are in the right position. It can be really hot mess. I wouldn't recommend doing anything over 3 notes, and even 3 notes is kind of messy. You can get enough emphasis out of these double note patterns. So I don't know. Da, da, da. Something I like is symmetry or symmetry. So kind of just all even and nice looking. It's just visually attractive and helps when you're it just naturally creates decent gameplay. Right here in the background, there's like sort of in the background. So I'm gonna do like a hold and like another one. Do something like that, and then so assuming you're a right-handed person, after this double, you probably hit this top note with your right hand. So since you're hitting these 3 notes with your right hand, maybe like middle, pointer, thumb, or like middle, pointer, pointer, or whatever, then since you're hitting these middle notes with your right hand, that would naturally lead to you hitting this left note with your left hand, and then left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand. And then I can just like boom. And then maybe like triple notes here. I don't know, because I feel like it. I like to distinguish triple notes with like yellow. Do like a really big jump. Baka, baka, okay. So right here, there's a lot going on. So first is the burger, the baga baga, hamburger, Ronald sounds. But there's also there's the background rhythms. So there's a lot of stuff being played right now. I could do the burger stuff, but that'd probably be really boring gameplay wise, and since everything is already pretty hard, you'd want it to be at like a density that would like show, I guess, like the intensity. Something you have to keep in mind is intensity. For example, this is pretty dense relative to like a easy level, but in a harder level, this is a lot easier than a lot of other sections might be, since it's just half note rhythms and these things. And then right here, this is a lot easier, but since all the background's cut out, you map it a lot lighter, since it just feels a lot less intense. And then right here, you start to up the intensity again with more dense stuff. And then you do 3-note patterns, and then right here, you make it really, really dense. Or, yeah, because it's like the chorus, everything's going. So, I don't really know how I want to move this right now, so maybe something like I'm using a lot of these like one space in between double note patterns. I'm not really using them mostly for any particular reason. It's just comfortable, and I don't want to use other patterns, so I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna delete those and put them right here, because if I have this note down here, it creates like an ugly thing with the triple notes. So right here, I want to map those fast notes in some capacity, so I could have like a break and then map it. But I don't want to put in a break, because then maybe you're gonna hit whatever here too early. So, and then I could put holds here, but I don't really want to put holds, because first of all, these are doubles, and that's kind of annoying. But and it's kind of annoying because you have to like hold it down with both of your hands. But also, just I don't feel like it, so. It's lagging. Maybe I can do like, so I can put like a note right here or something. And what this note does, first of all, keeps the half note this like half beat, 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 sort of thing going. But it also, you're gonna play this with your right hand, which then frees up your left hand, so you can start the fast patterns on your left hand. And then for the fast pattern, I can do something like, I don't know. So the idea here is, since you hit this note with your right hand, then you're going to hit these notes with your right hand, since your right hand is already close to those top notes. If this note was maybe down here, then your right hand would be away from these top notes and would be a bit harder to play. So if you do right here, it's more comfortable. And then for this, you just left hand, and then I guess right hand. But I don't know where I'm gonna end up. So in addition to making sure these harder patterns are comfortable, you have to make sure it's comfortable to transition into them and also out of them. So also, I don't really know if I like this map, but I'm just mapping it fast for sake of getting my ideas out. This is already pretty hard. It's a 4-star. Harder maps like this, where there's a lot of notes, can get really high star ratings. I think that's more of an issue with the star rating calculations, because there are some maps where you can have easier patterns and it's just pretty dense. So and then maybe, I don't know, since you're doing this with your left hand, hopefully. Or maybe instead I can do that. So that guarantees you hit these with the left hand, so you hit that with your right hand. And then do like, I don't know, make it symmetrical, make it all fancy. And then right here, the rhythm is kind of weird because there's nothing right here. So I don't really know how to map that. I'm just gonna do like, the more you map, the more the editor will start to lag. I'm already at 30 FPS. It also, it's because I'm recording. But once you get a few minutes in, even 1 minute in, the editor can just start tanking really hard. So the audio sync might not be right, so you just have to kind of feel it. Of course, there'll be updates that optimize it, and as the game progresses, yeah, it'll just become easier to map. Something I forgot to mention, which should have been put at the start, pulsus mapping is really, really new. There's there's been like 7 people with ranked maps. I'm one of them, apparently. But I don't know where I was going with that. But basically these are just like really early concepts, and it's how I understand mapping. I don't know if anyone else understands it like this, or if it's the correct way of understanding it, I guess. But yeah, take everything with like a tiny grain of salt and just, yeah. It's kind of horrible because this overlaps with that. It's kind of, I don't really know how to change that, but I think it's still readable since there was enough time. I could change the foresight, I guess, a little bit, because with faster foresight it'll fade out faster. There. Alright. I don't know if I can get anything more out of this song without spending a really long time. So I want to show some of my own maps and some other people's maps, just from, yeah. I don't know what maps to show. You can look at unranked maps, and then copy them, but you can't do that with normal maps. You hit the copy button, and to be able to copy them, you have to play them first. I'll just do this whole and this one. Alright. You can go back in there. And it can lag. Sometimes the game just lag spikes a lot. I'll restart it. Okay, so let's go into, no, not that one. Hold on. There. Alright. So, this is one of my favorite levels, because, first of all, it's pretty hard. Second of all, it's pretty fun. But, yeah. Especially right here. It can get really... yeah. But, this is one of the earlier super hard levels. And I think it's pretty good. So, when you're just looking at it, first of all, there's I don't think beat color was a thing yet. But there's a lot of these triple things. Thankfully, the only triple note patterns used are these three length ones. So it's not that horrible. And a lot of maps, you shouldn't really make it so it's perfectly sight readable the first try. You should have, it's fine to have some patterns not be perfectly sight readable, because then after an attempt you can work it out. That's kind of how you have to play pulsus. If you just restrict yourself to doing only comfortable stuff, which I sometimes do, but if you just restrict yourself to only doing comfortable stuff and really readable stuff, you're missing a lot of like potential. For example, something like this can be really hard to read first try since there's like a bunch of varying things, but once you play it once or twice, you can, it's pretty easy to understand. Same with this. This is like really impossible to read, but to play it, it's really not that bad. You just kind of hit the middle note a bunch, and then sometimes hit some extra notes, and then it changes up a bit. Also, the main rhythm is those is just half beat patterns. Another thing, there's a lot of these really short holds, and you can notice there's a lot. It's like a sort of a triplet pattern or a triple note pattern. It could be something like this, but instead it's like this. This is a pretty good, like this note is pretty good at making it, first of all, easier while also being musically representative since it's 4 notes, and it also works a lot better with the pulsus editor. Like I said, it's a 9-tile grid, and with something like Juby with its 4 tiles, you could have it be a note here, a note here, a note there, and then just have one extra note since there's 4 notes to a row. Instead, you'd have to do something like, I don't know, like that for a 4-note pattern. But instead, it's just this note here. It creates a 4-note pattern while also making it a bit more playable. So, and then I go over here. This is probably the hardest part with these kind of patterns, these three note like vertical patterns. They're pretty tricky, but what you can do is just drag your finger across on basically any keyboard, at least downwards. Even on mechanical keyboards, usually they're like the keycaps are made so that you can quickly drag your finger down. You can't really do upwards though. And then on like like membrane keyboards or something, probably shouldn't play this on membrane, but it's really easy to just drag your finger across. Something like this. This is a pattern that's pretty easy to read. I mean, you just spiral, but it's also pretty hard to play. From how I play it, basically, these 2 notes are with left hand middle pointer, and then this is my right hand thumb, and then the middle, and then the pointer, and then the middle, and then I move the pointer up to hit this note, and these are with my left hand, and then goes back. It a lot of the times with these faster patterns, you might have to wanna just work it out by slowing it down or copying it or recording a video and janking out your own way. In these vertical patterns, like I said, you can't just drag your finger down. So instead, do thumb, pointer, middle. Yeah, it's kind of weird. These are really short holds. These are something that are pretty fun to implement into a map. Basically, they're like beats, but you just can't hold them down, so you have to tap them really fast, or else you get bad accuracy, or you just miss the note. So, something like this, you just alternate your left hand, right hand. So left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand, etc. And then right here, you kind of have to jank switch it. And right there. Like I said, overlaps are pretty tough, but this map doesn't use many overlaps, so once you get here, you're definitely going to fail this on a sight read, but once you understand it, it's pretty tough to play, but yeah. And that's that for that map. But, I'll do Unshakable next. Matix, or Matikusu, is another mapper. This guy is also another mapper. I don't know if he has any ranked maps yet. He's made a few maps. Matix likes to do a thing where basically you color each of the notes according to what beat you're on. For example, look at these blue ones. They look like the blue ticks in the editor. These green ones, the tick is green, this is green, and then orange is for the 1/4 ones. I'm kind of indifferent with mapping like this. I think it might be a really good way for mapping more variety bass patterns. For example, this song, there's a lot of varying rhythms in the vocals, and they map the vocals. But personally, I have a really hard time rating stuff like this because I don't really read the beat colors. But it might work. I might just be playing it wrong. Another thing I haven't talked about yet is effects. So if you click down here in the editor mode, you can switch to effects. And this is a whole other thing I don't want to go into, but you can make automation points, and with the automation points you can do things. You can do something like that, I don't know, and then boom. In the effects editor you can hit the button next below the escape, the like tilde button, to hide the UI, and there's a bunch of different stuff. It's crazy. I'll show one of my own affected levels, but yeah, you can do a bunch of cool things. This is a bug, but now I want to show two of my own levels because I feel like it. So here's something that can just show like what effects can do. I spent like a few hours making just a little bit of stuff. There's a lot, yeah, but basically this is all just made using like the automation points. Yeah, so I'm just gonna let this play out because I want to flex. Okay, I'm done. And this is a sort of niche way of mapping. It's sort of called mod charting right now. Since there's like, if you're familiar with StepMania mod charts or like not ITG mod charts, basically they just put a bunch of visual effects with easier mapping, and the challenge is reading it rather than technically playing it. So yeah, there aren't really any fully out yet. There are a few levels with a lot of effects, but they're sort of normal levels. There's another level using the same song called Evanescent, but it's like 11 seconds out. That does something similar. And yeah. This hasn't really been expanded on much since it takes a lot of time and effort to design and make something like that. So, and then here, like I said, Maddox is another mapper who likes coloring by the notes. I'm gonna have to start to wrap this up pretty quick because I'm supposed to be in class in like 4 minutes, and I just decided to record this. So, but when it loads, please. Oh my god. Here's a. Oh, on this map he didn't do the no color thing, but. But yeah, you can use no colors for other things like distinguishing sections, distinguishing instruments. I think he changes it. Yeah, he changes up the note color once it gets to the chorus, just to like differentiate a little bit. And there's also its own effects, subtitles, little visual things. So yeah, and I'm going to show another one of my maps. This is a map I made recently, and it's 6 minutes long. But like I said, anything too dense might get really laggy, so this runs like 15 FPS in the editor. So I just want to show one of my maps. Cause yeah. Oh yeah, let's go. Alright, cool. But oh my god. Okay. Like I already said, you can see some of the principles I mentioned earlier, having like two-note patterns and then two-note pattern and then stuff like this. This is another gimmick to this map is 0.25 length holds, which are quarter beat long holds, and I colored them pink because sometimes it can be pretty hard to distinguish like a hold like this short compared to something like this when you're reading it super fast. And I don't really feel like explaining all my mapping principles on this map, but I don't even know if there are any. I just made something that I liked. But this is kind of a jank part in the map. like I said, they're like these beat transitions. I didn't say that, but there are these beat transitions that can change how they come in. You can use that to improve your reading, but that hasn't really been expanded on. I decided to have some fun do that. Something that's good to try out in mapping is just restrict yourself or make certain gimmicks. For example, in this gimmick, you're intended to hit these doubles with your left hand and then hit everything else with your right hand. So it can create some interesting mapping concepts and some interesting gameplay. Well, so it's not completely like generic. Over here at the end somewhere, there's this part. This is a really most of the map uses, for example, look at this. There's like just a bunch of half beat patterns. Even these pink notes are just like normal beats. Then there's all this, and then, and I'm sorry about the lag, but this is my fault. So right here's a longer pattern. Left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand, and then whatever. Right here, there's a really long, or not really long, but there's this long 1/4 section where it's just, well, basically every single half beat rhythm is a hold, a really short hold, and every normal 1/4 rhythm is and has a normal beat in it. So basically, how you play this or how you read this, whenever there's a normal beat, there's always going to be a beat right after it, and whenever there's these holds, there's a little break. So that kind of just like the intuition I was talking about makes it a bit easier to play. So it's lagging, but whatever. And then right there, the rhythm sort of changes, but I try to denote it at least with using a double, so it's kind of like something changed. So anyway, that was a lot. I don't know if any of it was coherent. I don't know if that helped anyone, or if it will help anyone, but that's just kind of my like ranting about how I think mapping is about and stuff. So my throat hurts, and I'm going to stop recording. Thank you for watching. Bye.